If there's one thing that the US and China agree on, it's that AI chips are the most critical strategic asset. China and the US are increasingly jostling over semiconductor intellectual property and manufacturing in Taiwan. The US seeking to jumpstart its own chip production, while using sanctions to blunt China's drive for self-reliance in this critical industry. Let's analyze the battle for supremacy in semiconductor manufacturing unfolding between the US and China. The semiconductor industry is the driving force behind such technological innovations as artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, and factory automation, playing a crucial role in nations' economic prosperity and national security, despite accounting for 25% of total semiconductor demand. The US total semiconductor manufacturing capacity is just 12%, down from 37% in the 1990s. That has sparked concerns about a threat to national security, given China's efforts to gain a significant foothold in this vital industry. President Biden's geopolitical gambit to preserve America's technology and military advantage is entering a period of maximum risk. America pioneered the semiconductor industry and won the Cold War largely because of it. Yet by an accident of economic history and Morris Chang's visionary leadership of Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing, the US stores its crown jewels, so to speak, 100 miles off the coast of the Chinese mainland. Now, the US has assembled a united front to deprive China of the world's most advanced chips and equipment to make them. Those cutting-edge technologies come from the US, UK, the Netherlands, South Korea, and Japan. Yet 90% of advanced chips designed by companies like Nvidia, Apple, and Broadcom are made at the sprawling TSMC factory campus on the island that China claims as its own. That's why Beijing views the US-China chip war not just as injurious, since it has an explicit goal of diminishing China's technological capability, but as a direct challenge to its sovereignty. Both Washington and Beijing are fixated on controlling the future of computing. Chris Miller writes in the 2022 book Chip War, the fight for the world's most critical technology. To a frightening degree, that future is dependent on a small island that Beijing considers a renegade province and America has committed to defend by force. Yet a key question is just how determined the Biden administration is to keep advanced semiconductor technology out of China's hands. Unveiling of a 5G smartphone by Chinese tech powerhouse Huawei, later confirmed to have a highly advanced chip, signaled that US efforts to contain China's technology ambitions are failing, while the Biden administration responded by adopting still tighter export restrictions for AI chips and advanced semiconductor making equipment. Those updated rules already appear to be falling short. President Biden and Chinese presidents Xi Jinping met outside San Francisco earlier, a hopeful sign after the US-China relationship had grown from bad to worse since the unveiling of broad export controls in September 2022. Both sides have good reason to try to halt the downward slide in US-China relations. Biden, facing a re-election battle, already has his hands full with military conflict in Ukraine and the Middle East. As China's economy suffers a prolonged hangover from its property bubble, foreign investment has dried up, while Xi reportedly affirmed China's stance that unification with Taiwan is unstoppable, US sources said. He also indicated that there are no plans for an invasion. That assurance doesn't count for much, but the presidential and vice presidential candidates from Taiwan's incumbent party, the Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, have seized on that report to downplay the threat of an invasion. A key focus of the report is the CHIPS and Science Act, which became US law in 2022. Its aim is to boost domestic chip production, with $52.7 billion earmarked for allocation over 5 years to develop domestic manufacturing, as well as R&D and workforce programs. As part of the CHIPS Act, semiconductor companies will get 25% investment tax credits for investing in semiconductor manufacturing or specialized tooling equipment. However, as the report notes, the CHIPS Act faces challenges in turning its goals into realities. In March, the Commerce Department introduced conditions for companies seeking $150 million or more in funding, including stock buyback limitations, profit sharing, and a preference for union labor. The report warns such conditions could make returning leading-edge semiconductor manufacturing to the US extremely difficult, with companies working to stay below the $150 million threshold. The former chair and CEO of the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, a behemoth that produces 90% of the world's most advanced processor chips, estimates that it would cost up to 50% more to make leading-edge chips in the US. And most semiconductor companies don't need extra funding, as the industry is one of the world's most profitable. That leads the authors to conclude that only less profitable chip companies may prove more willing to participate in the CHIPS Act in its current form, limiting its industry impact. Semiconductor companies that choose to manufacture chips in-house are known as integrated device manufacturers, with the plants that make such chips called fabs. Another model for the industry is to go fabless, outsourcing the manufacturing process to a foundry, and some companies have chosen a hybrid model. The Semiconductor Industry Association estimates that the 10-year cost of a state-of-the-art fab ranges between $10 billion and $40 billion, up from less than $1 billion in 1997. Only 4 IBMs, Samsung, Intel, Hynix, and Micron have the scale necessary to support the construction of leading-edge fans. But other semiconductor companies, including NVIDIA, AMD, Qualcomm, and Marvell, have outsourced some or all of their manufacturing to TSMC. TSMC is the clear leader among the 5 major foundry companies, with a 58% share of the global market. In 2021, Intel announced it would refocus on the foundry business with an eye on overtaking Samsung as the second largest foundry by 2025. However, the authors point to several obstacles that got in the way of Intel's ambitions, including rigid design rules and talent churn, and the fact that the foundry business model is totally different from that governing Intel's CPU business. Meanwhile, TSMC is rushing to establish fabs outside Taiwan as a hedge against supply chain disruptions that might arise from the region's geopolitical tensions. The authors think this move will help TSMC hold on to most of the foundry business, although they note it has been having trouble establishing a leading-edge foundry in the United States. Samsung's foundry business, on the other hand, is expected to benefit from the CHIPS Act, given its 27 years of foundry experience in the United States. Taiwan's relationship with China is the biggest issue in the AI war, and the threat of an invasion is the biggest reason why the Taiwanese could favor the opposite head. Chinese military activity in the Taiwan Straits may increase in the coming weeks to drive home the risk Taiwan faces. The stakes couldn't be higher. A conflict over Taiwan would have a profound impact on what Biden has characterized as the wider battle between democracy and autocracy. The one certainty: an invasion or blockade of Taiwan could sink the global economy into chaos. So that's it. What do you think about a potential AI-induced war possibility between the superpowers? Comment down your thoughts. Do share the video, hit the like button, and subscribe for more.